thank you so much for watching. My name is Savannah, and if you're new here, first of all, welcome. And today we are back in Planet Zoo, building in Sakura Zoo, creating a walkthrough habitat for some Indian peafowl. If you don't remember or you're new here, like I said, our Sakura Zoo is our kind of lower budget, smaller zoo. So we did our first habitat with the bongos, our second one with the Chinese pangolin, as well as create the whole entrance plaza and area for the zoo. And then today we're adding peafowl, and peafowl are just one of those kind of iconic zoo animals, I guess, in my mind, that kind of fit really well with a lower budget, small zoo. And before I jump in too much to explaining the build, I do want to remind everyone that if you are able to like and comment, don't forget to subscribe if you really do enjoy the video today. Every little bit helps me grow the channel, and I really do appreciate it. And with that, so we are starting off with building the entrance for this walkthrough habitat. And the minute that we got the Australian DLC and I saw these they're actually fence pieces, I knew immediately that I wanted to do something kind of like this, because if you saw, I kind of took, I think there's 1, 2, 3, like 5 or 6 of them, and you just kind of rotate them. They're all nice and symmetrical and things like that, so it creates this really nice grid kind of bar system, and then just duplicating that over and over and over again. I was going for the feel of like an old school aviary, like a walkthrough aviary that a lot of zoos have. One that is, you know, maybe not up to date, it's a little bit older, kind of fitting in with the theme of Sakura Zoo. I did struggle with the layout a little bit on this one. You can see I kind of started to do a 2-story in the front and then moved it to the back. I knew that I wanted to use the walls like this, but I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with the roofing. So that was kind of going through my mind as I was doing this layout. And do ignore the kind of facade doors that are on there right now. I do end up switching them out for the actual habitat gate doors. I think that they just look a lot better than those ones do. I was gonna do more like, you know, like rope hanging down in front like you would see with an aviary if they have birds that are flying around. And because this one just has peafowl in it, the habitat gates, although still not very realistic because they kind of like fling wide open and any animal could escape as a guest walks in, but they just kind of fit the theme because they're all made of that same kind of habitat wood, like all the framing and stuff is. Like in any of my builds, this one is usable for the peafowl even if you're not playing in sandbox mode. I will say that if you are playing in like franchise or somewhere where you are caring about their feelings, you probably want to sink a few of those be quiet, you know, don't be too loud signs into the ground or place those around. They weren't getting too stressed as I was playing, as far as when I was doing the cinematics and kind of doing some building stuff, but you know, they could potentially, they're sensitive little creatures. They do get stressed when people walk through too fast or too loud or whatever it is the guests that are doing. But overall, I'm very happy with how the enclosure came out. It's a fairly simple build, and I will say the majority of the effort that was put into this build was actually on the outside. I'll get to it a little bit later, but I kind of wanted it up on a hill and like a walkthrough, like a trail walk kind of thing. So in the front, we have this like serpentine-esque trail up to it, and then an even longer one down out the back. It's one of the last things that I do. And then we add like a little picnic bench area, and looking at what I'm building now, I really need to learn to make that drain a blueprint because I end up remaking it over and over again, and it would just be a whole lot easier on myself if I just made it a blueprint so that I could copy and paste it. But that aside, anyway, making it a little bit of a trail so that it's kind of a walk-through experience. Now, I have said before, Sakura Zoo is meant to be our zoo that it is kind of under budget or smaller budget rather, but still looking at a lot of the details of behind the scenes area and realism is what we're really kind of going for here. And, you know, let me know what you think down below. I think we kind of hit a pretty realistic look with this one as far as, you know, what a peafowl habitat might look like, or at least kind of a walkthrough aviary. I would kind of envision if this was in a real zoo that it might have more than just peafowl in it. It might have a few other avian species. But I do go through and add a little bit later some kind of perches and areas that the peafowl would be able to fly up to, because not many people realize or remember, I think, that peafowl actually do and can fly. When I visited the San Diego Zoo on multiple occasions, they've been kind of up in the trees and on the roofs of buildings and things like that, walking around, because they do free roam the entrance area of the zoo there. So I just added a few perches and things like that to give the idea that they would have somewhere to sit or somewhere to fly up to. In addition, I end up making them a little house above this exit area over here. I'll get to it in a little bit and change it up. But that way they could go fly up there, and there is some bedding. They're not going to use it in the actual real game because the peafowl are completely terrestrial animals in Planet Zoo. They stick to the ground and they don't really fly anywhere. But that's the idea of that. So that kind of adding that little bit of realism. And then, excuse me, just lining the bottom here with these are actually the South American, bamboo sides. And, you know, to be honest, I'm not too much of a fan of how they ended up looking. They're kind of a flat texture for me, but as far as this goes, I'm kind of envisioning they are more of like a facade, where again, we are a lower budget zoo, so it's just maybe like a painted piece of wood or something like that to kind of line the bottom. And I get back to it a little bit later. I wasn't completely sold on that, so that's why you see me kind of put it down in a couple different instances, and then I go back and finish it later. In here, I did start with this dirt path, and then I do change it later to like the crumpled up bark mulch kind of pathing, but I do keep this railing just as kind of a guide. You know, the peafowl can obviously still jump up and over it and traverse it completely fine, as well as the keepers, but just kind of a reminder of where guests should walk. You know, I didn't want it to be a completely open, you know, free-for-all, the guests run around everywhere. That would be a little bit of chaos. Especially with how the guests act in Planet Zoo. But keeping this as like, this is where you're meant to walk to outline the trail. So I think that the crumpled up mulch and bark fit a whole lot better. But then I have to go back through and place the wooden poles to complete that little railing. And then here are the little perches I was talking about. So I used a lot of the climbable pieces because I just feel like those wooden pieces have a much better texture than some of the other ones in the actual build catalog. The ones that are meant for like climbing structures and things like that, just kind of matched what I was going for. And this is something that I actually like to do. I did this in River Rock Zoo when I did an implied habitat. I did an implied aviary and kind of raised that feeder up, because for avian species and birds that will fly around, they'll often have things that they can get to as far as food containers up high so that they'll fly up and get to that. You can kind of ignore the roof for right now. Right now I'm using these glass pieces with the recolorable outlines or trim. I switched those up for, I think they're the New World, or maybe they're not technically New World. Maybe they're just Planet Zoo glass roof pieces, and then end up custom outlining the glass panels with more of the same wood climbing pieces that I'm using for the frame. I think that it just kind of matched it a little bit better. Here's where I'm switching it out. For these ones right here, one, I liked the angle on these a little bit better, but also two, I felt like it just matched the overall build a little bit better. You know, the other ones looked, you know, very painted, very kind of cartoony, plasticky, and I just wasn't quite happy with it. Now, in all reality, as I talked about realism, this one right here, I would love to have had, you know, a mesh roof or been able to continue the paneling on the roof. And, you know, I could have, but I wanted this one to have just a little bit of difference and not just been like two flat boxes next to each other as if I was to carry on the walls to cover the roof. So in reality, this might be a little bit of an oven or like walking under a magnifying glass now that I'm looking at it, because the roof is entirely glass, but that was kind of the ideas. I wanted something to be open, you know, that you kind of just feel like you're in one big cage. And another thing that I might change if I could is that the color of the Australian fence pieces that I'm using for the walls are a bit red in color for me. I wish they were just a little bit more of a subdued like brown color that, you know, still gives off that like rust of metal that's been outside for a really long time, but maybe not quite as red. I think it works fine, but if I'm nitpicking and deciding, you know, what I would and wouldn't change, that would be one of those things. I'm kind of finished with the inside build right now. I think I go back and add a couple things, but moving to the outside now, making a couple custom signs. I've seen a couple creators do this more recently, and I'm drawing a blank on their names. I apologize. If you know who they are, leave them down below to give them some credit. But making some signs that don't actually have any text on them, but just like implied text for using the brackets and things like that. I used to think, you know, that to make a good sign, you would have to use the signs and sink in some words, and I could never come up with what to put on the signs, but I saw, like I said, a couple creators make these just very simple, throw a bunch of shapes everywhere, use these brackets for lines, and they come out pretty clean looking. So I'm kind of happy with these, and I do a few of these. So this sign in particular, I think I put one outside each entrance and then one inside. The idea being that if it was peafowl and a few different other species, those squares on the left might represent all the different animals that are in the enclosure, and then obviously some text to the right to talk about them, circles at the bottom because sure they're different than squares and it makes the sign look a little bit different. To be honest, that's the only reason I put them down there, but just more information about maybe the habitat or more information about the species, things like that. So I put these in a couple places, and then on the trails both up to and away from the enclosure, I'll make a longer, more horizontal one. If you guys want to see those on the workshop, let me know down below, because I am happy to upload those ones. They're just very generic, simple, plain signs, along with this one as well. This is more meant to be maybe a sign about some of the foliage that's in there to let you know what plants are growing, and you can use it for like a garden walk if you wanted to as well. I struggled with colors, and actually now that I'm watching this back, I don't actually remember what color I settled on for the squares on that sign, because you'll see I change them here. I kind of like them as black, so if it doesn't look like I leave them as black, maybe I'll have to go back and fix that, because I kind of like the black squares better than the orange squares. Anyway, regardless, afterthoughts, clearly, as I'm watching this back. I do sync a peafowl education board in there so that guests will actually stop and look at it. And then that's pretty much it for the signs until we get to the trail up and then the trail away. I'll make a couple more. But then just topping off, like I said before, I kind of went back to this because I was undecided on how I wanted it to look. And, you know, after building around it and staring at it for a while, I decided that it looked okay. Again, keeping in mind that I don't think that this would actually be real bamboo in this case. It would just be a facade, like either a painted or like a plastic facade, something that's cheap and easy to slap up that looks like it's got some sort of texture to it, but isn't actually, you know, bamboo or something like that. And then lining it again with more of these habitat wood pieces. And then halfway through, I think right now I realize that I don't actually have to use the gridded ones, that they have off the grid ones. I don't go back and switch the other ones that I already put in place, but using these off gridded ones makes the whole process a whole lot easier. I just kind of forgot that we had them, to be honest. They did that with these bamboo pieces, and they also did it with the new wooden pieces and the corrugated metal pieces we got for the Australian DLC. I think it's awesome, and I would much rather use these kind of pieces than the gridded ones, because the gridded ones are just a pain. You have to move each of them individually once you separate them from groups and things like that, if you want them to move in different directions, that is. With that, you know, there's not too much more I have to say about this build. We're going to get to the outside here pretty soon. You'll see that I use a little trick that many creators have used as far as making nice and gentle slopes. Clearly pausing and contemplating something there. I don't remember what it was, but thinking about something real hard. Using the flat floor or roof pieces to kind of map out where you want the terrain to drop to, so that you can get a good idea on having something be very gradual. Something I'm trying to pay a lot more attention to is the scale of things. as I'm watching other creators play, you know, somebody mentioned, I think it was Beyond Drew TV mentioned in a recent stream, the scale of Planet Zoo and just how massive everything is. And if you take just a normal wall, it's 4 meters high, and that's way higher, you know, in comparison to the people in there than a normal ceiling. And it makes things look giant. But it's meant to be like, you know, there's our standard wall. This is the standard size of a building. So trying to pay attention a lot more to the scale of things, which is why in this part it might look a little bit low, but when the people walk in, it looks totally normal, as if, you know, it's built for them, built to scale, things like that. And I think that it, one, adds a little bit more of a challenge to building because you really have to think and keep that in mind, but two, really adds to things looking real and in scale with the Planet Zoo people. I made a really simple fence here moving on to the outside, just with those those habitat climbing structure poles. I really should look up the actual name for them so I don't have to call them a random thing every time I reference them. And then just doing some rocks to kind of outline the curves of the paths. And then here is where I'm doing that trick with the floor pieces where I'm gonna map out the kind of sloped, sorry, I got stuck on the S there. Sounded like a snake. And doing the slopes here for the path to go down, so that it's kind of just a serpentine, what do they call it? Oh, a switchback, you know, when you're hiking back and forth and back and forth. But it's not very steep at all. I don't end up making it that long. I wasn't quite sure what I was gonna do when I was mapping it out, so I just made a whole bunch of different tiers, and it ended up ending it in stairs on this side, keeping in line with realism and trying to keep in mind that I want things to be accessible for handicap and wheelchairs and things. The idea for this would be, you know, that they would have to enter and exit the same side, but it is all accessible for them. That's why the other side doesn't have stairs and this side does. And they're still able to access the bench and picnic area up at the top here just by going in the other side. And then just continuing the same fencing onto this side to kind of wrap it all up and make it look symmetrical, or I guess not symmetrical, cohesive. That's a better word. Cohesive's a better word, because this is not symmetrical at all. This side looks nothing like the other side. And then just kind of gradually raising up each of the tiers of this fence. And that way it kind of increases in height, but without slanting it. I didn't want to make it kind of a slanted rail. I kind of wanted to keep everything horizontal. With that, I am going to leave you with the rest of the speed build. I don't have too much to say, and actually, I take it back. Yeah, I do have more to say. I have a note in front of me here, and I specifically wrote it down so that I would not forget. And look at me, I was trying to forget. I was trying to leave it out. Plans for the channel. I mentioned last time that I am looking into other games as well as doing a Let's Play in a franchise mode for this game. I don't want to announce it and get everybody's hopes up because it is going to be a slow going process. As I've mentioned in the past, you know, I am a full-time student and a full-time employee, so time is really tight for me currently. But at the end of the year, it won't be quite as bad. I will hopefully, fingers crossed, have graduated and be done with that whole part of my life and school and have a lot more time. But things that I'm looking to bring to the channel are Planet Coaster, Mega Aquarium, and possibly 2 Point Hospital, among a couple other things as far as either Let's Plays or obviously Planet Coaster might be a speed build series like I'm kind of doing here. I played Planet Coaster a while ago, but really haven't been back into it in a long time. Just recently opened it up to see, you know, what I can do, and it's gonna take me a while to get back in the groove over there, but let me know what you're interested. I'm really interested in Mega Aquarium, actually. I think it's a really, really cute game, and I've played a little bit of it so far, and really, really like it. So let me know what you think, because obviously, like I've said in the past, this content's for you, it's not for me. I have, you know, free time to play games that I want to play, and I don't need to record them. but if you want to see it, happy to sit down and put a little video together for you guys. So with that then, that is it. That was my only note, is to talk about future games and get your guys' opinion. And again, if you did enjoy the video, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a like, and comment. Let me know how you're doing. Let me know what you thought about the build, about anything I said would be awesome. I will see you guys in the next one, and as always, thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye!